Hey guys, I'm Andrea Kirk with the channel The Art Chick, and today I have a really fun art project for you. We are going to be painting a beautiful winter wonderland painting with oils, and what I've done is I've purchased a 16 by 20 canvas and I've turned it horizontally, and I'm going to teach you a technique on how to paint pine trees and then also the snow and the misty background. So it should be really fun, and it'll be a really neat painting to hang throughout the holidays and throughout winter. So get out your art supplies and let's get started. For this project, you will need the following supplies: a Masterson paint storage container, a palette knife, paper towels, a silicoil cleaning tank, Turpenoid Natural, liquid, a canvas, and a brown colored pencil. These are the specific paintbrushes I used. And finally, these are the paint colors you'll need. I included a complete list in my video description. To begin oil painting, let me explain a few things that you will need. So for my paint palette, I just use a simple mat board and I wrap it in wax paper and put tape on the other side. The reason being is that when I am done with the project, I just undo the tape and roll it up in a ball and toss it, because I don't want to deal with the heavy-duty cleanup. And then also, to clean your brushes, you will want to use Turpenoid Natural. I like this product because it's safe for the environment, and I know that I am not going to be killing brain cells while I am painting. And you just simply fill your jar. You don't have to fill it all the way up, but just enough that you can paint and clean it off when you're done with your brushes. And then the other product that I really love is liquid. This improves the sheen in your paint, and then it also allows the paint to dry a little bit quicker so that you can layer a little bit better. And yeah, this is great stuff. So I'm going to teach you how to mix the colors that we will need for the background of our snowy scene. And as you can see, I have a good range of colors here. A lot of them are cool colors. However, I do have brown and red in there as well. So you will start with liquid. You definitely need that. And then this is your titanium white. This is Cobalt Teal. This is Cerulean blue. This is Phthalocyanine blue. This is Dioxazine purple. This one is burnt umber, Alizarin crimson, and of course Ivory black. And we basically want to produce shades that would look really good fuzzed out in the background. And so take titanium white, and then I want you to take the cerulean blue, and then take the phthalocyanine blue, and mix those together. And you're going to get a really bright blue, but the reason I am using brown and alizarin crimson, so the burnt umber and the alizarin crimson, is so that I can tone that down. So take your burnt umber and mix that in, and just watch how things start to change. Okay, see how much more dull that color is? Okay, and then from here, if you want to darken that a little bit more, just take a hint of black and a hint of red and mix those colors in, and then watch how that makes that even darker. Okay, so that's just one way to darken a color. And I always use the extra paint on my palette knife, and so just swipe it over here. And we want a color that's not quite so blue. And so I want you to take more brown, and then I want you to take that Dioxazine purple and mix those together. Okay, add some black. And obviously this is too dark, and so wipe off your palette knife. Anytime you dip your palette knife into white, you want to make sure that you clean it off first. Okay, so I'm going to mix white, and that's going to lighten that purple like this. Okay, and then it's still a little too bright, so take more burnt umber and mix that in, and then you'll have the perfect shade. From here, I want you to swipe your palette knife again, and we want just more of a gray. And so take Ivory black and mix those together. And here we have a dark gray, but we also want a light gray. So swipe your palette knife again, clean off your palette knife, and then take titanium white and blend those together. And see how you have a lighter gray. So these colors will be really good in the background to mute everything, but we need a few more. So this time I want to do burnt umber and alizarin crimson. And we want to tone that down a little bit. So take ivory black, mix that in. And as an artist, you just want to eye the colors, and when you decide it looks right, then it looks right. There's really no right or wrong way. You just play with it as you go. So we have blue, purple, grayish pink, light gray, dark gray. And I think that I will also take titanium white, and I'm going to take a hint of this color, so the blue, and I'm going to mix it into that titanium white, and suddenly we have a light blue. I want you to take burnt umber. I'm going to squeeze more out here, because I think it would also be nice to just have a light brown. And so take that burnt umber and take white and mix that together. And I want it a little bit darker than that. Add just a hint of alizarin crimson. And if it gets too pink, just add more brown and more white. So I'm going to add all of that burnt umber. And it's okay to have the pink in there, you just don't need it to be super intense. In fact, I'm going to keep that color, and I'm going to take the titanium white, put it over here, take some of this color and blend that in. And that gives you two shades. One is lighter than the other. And then we may need a bluish black. And so one more shade. I think I said that before, but sometimes I just get carried away and I want a lot of color. So, okay, so I took both blues. I took the Phthalocyanine blue and the Cerulean blue, mixed those together. I added a little ivory black, and then take titanium white, and that gives us a really pretty, almost turquoise color. Not quite turquoise, but pretty close. Okay, so I think this is a good variety of colors to use, and I'm going to show you how to apply them on your canvas. So you might laugh when I tell you that the only drawing that you are going to do on this is a horizon line. And we're going to probably have that horizon line come just below the halfway mark, so I would say about right here. And yeah, this is pretty intense drawing right here. You guys might work up a sweat. But the reason why we're just doing one line and nothing else is because we are going to be painting the trees using a lot of texture, but first we have to get that misty background. And so if you have all these lines drawn in there, you're going to be painting over those anyway. And so that's all the drawing you have to do. And I'll show you a technique with your paintbrush where you will actually like but you'll paint the lines of the trees after we have the background, and then that will give us our guide to stipple the texture of the trees over that. So we will get started on painting right away. I'm going to use this paintbrush to paint the background, and let me show you a few strokes that you can do. So take your brush and dip it in your liquid first. Take straight titanium white, and you're going to paint along the top. Okay, and so basically paint from the top about a quarter of the way down with the titanium white. I'll put it on time lapse, but just notice that as you paint, you want to do an X pattern like this. Once you've applied your white, then I want you to take your light blue and I want you to come over here towards the base of the white, and you're basically going to go in and make this area look misty, okay? See how pretty that blends into the white? That's why we wanted to do the white first, so that you get that mystical look. Okay, and then let me show you one more thing. With that blue, you can also add some gray, and you don't need a lot, but you're going to bring that gray towards the base of the blue. And same thing, do that X pattern and blend all of those colors together. And it's just going to give a nice backdrop for those pine trees, so that when you do go and paint those pine trees, you have some color and depth in the background. You need that variation in order for those trees to look realistic. Even though that they're back behind and they're in a shadow, you still want them to look real. So you can see that there's just plain white up here. You can even pull that color up a little more if you want. Okay, and to blend, just do the X. And so I want you to do that pretty much all along this area. Just come down along here and I'll show you in time lapse. I actually turned the light off. I have bright lights for my art room, but notice how that gray and that blue, it just gets lighter and lighter as it goes up. So that's what you want to carry across from the right to the left. At this point, you have an abstract image of the background, and I love to use what's called a fan brush, and this just softens everything so that it isn't quite so painterly. Just take the fan brush and go in and smooth everything out, because we really want the softness in the background. And notice how I did peaks with my gray and blue. And that's going to be the pine trees that are in the distance in the background. So we're just seeing kind of that ghost image of those pine trees. So I use this fan brush in an X pattern as well to get that nice smooth finish. Okay, so everything is smoothed out, and at this point I want to take my paintbrush again, my larger paintbrush, and we want to do a little bit of pink. Okay, so look at the two shades that we mixed, and I want you to take also the grayish pink shade that we mixed. So you'll use all three of your pinks. And we have a dark, a medium, and a light. And we're just going to go in and apply that towards the base here, just to add additional color. Okay, so here I've got the darker shade. And you can even have it go up into a couple of the trees for added color and added shadow. And then you can take the medium pink and apply that in there as well. And that just helps the painting look more realistic. If you have more color, it's going to look better. When you have a photograph to work from, it doesn't necessarily have all the color. And as an artist, that's what you can apply. And it really does add much more appeal to a painting when you add that artistic touch. So the trick here is that you take the liquid and titanium white, and we're going to apply it at the bottom of the pink, the grayish pink that we applied. And so we have straight white right here. And this is where the snow is going to look magical. You want to get a really, really, really thick layer in here. And you have to realize that this is in a forest and we are going to have hills of snow. So we want to give that effect that the snow is uneven, and that will also add to your painting. You can also do that X pattern through here as well. Okay, so down here, we want it to look foggy. And so just take your brush and you're going to paint back and forth like this. Another thing, take your blue and just add that up in here. And this will look so beautiful. When you start painting those trees and you have this misty background, it's amazing. And then take your fan brush again, and then go in and just get rid of those brush strokes and soften everything up. Some people like to leave the brush strokes. If that's the kind of painter you are, by all means do it. It's just I have a different style and a different approach to how I paint, but that doesn't mean other people can't do their own thing. So you can see how the snow turns into that fog right there. And now what we want to do is we're going to take a smaller brush. So this one is pretty good size. I like that it's flat right here. And I want you to take the purple that we mixed and just take that brush and you're going to go in and do a nice long line that disappears. So it can be wider at the bottom and then disappear towards the top. And don't worry, it's not going to stay like that. And now take your gray and you're going to go in and you're going to start stippling with that brush. Okay, and you have to stipple over that trunk because you don't want to see it. You'll see some parts of it, but for the most part, it's going to be camouflaged. And if you want fine texture, just use the very tip of your brush. Notice how I'm just doing really fast strokes, and then I stroke upward again to fade those strokes. So you barely want to see that tree back in the distance. I'm going to show you how to do this tree, and then I'm going to put it on time lapse and do a few more, because if I did this entire painting not on time lapse, then it would take hours. I'm going to come all the way down here and have those branches kind of disappear towards the base, because snow makes them heavy and you want to see just a hint of those branches down here. And then even fade the edges of the trunk. So we are painting in an abstract style. Can you see that tree? That's exactly the look we are going for. If you want to get more creative, you can take your tiny fine tip brush, so this one here, and take straight titanium white. And if you want, you can go in there and frost some of those branches to look like snow. And see how it stands out a little bit more. And you don't have to do a lot. Just go in and do subtle hints of white. If you overdo it, it will look fake. So you want it to be very, very subtle. This would be an excellent gift to give for Christmas. So if you are planning to do something really special for someone, this is perfect. It's also great for decorating. See how pretty that is? So I'm going to do a few more of those back in here. Then I will show you how to do the more realistic trees that are closer to us, that are more in the foreground. So I'm going to put this on time lapse and just follow along. As you can see, we have some really good texture in these trees in the background. And notice how I darkened in between over here and here, and then also along the left side. The reason for that is that we are going to be painting some darker trees here and here, and the tips of those trees are frosted with snow. And so if you have a dark background coming through, the frosted tips will stand out. And so you can judge where you want your trees to be. But one thing I want you to recognize is the design and the composition of the painting. Notice how I have nothing right here in the center. Okay, it's a big no-no when you're doing a beautiful landscape like this to have one thing just right here in the center. Rather, we have a really nice pattern going on with the trees. And, you know, we have this negative space up in here in the white that does this jagged pattern, and then it comes down in a deep V for the middle, and then continues that jagged pattern. And that just makes it look more interesting. And then as you paint these other trees, that can also play a key role in the design of your overall painting so that you have a beautiful composition in the end. So another thing that you can do is darken down along the base by that snow a little bit more, because when you go to paint the base of those trees, this just helps create a really good dark base for those trees. So take your brush and just work along above that line of snow. And don't do it everywhere, just kind of come up. You decide where you want that tree to be. You know, I'm going to have a big one here, probably another one here, and then one along here, and then a few baby ones over in there. So I'm going to put it on time lapse. Just watch how I add that dark shadow, you know, where each of those trees will be. And then I want you to paint all of this white. We do want to do a tree over in here as well, so we will need a shadow along this area, and then you can come down and maybe do one here. So notice that instead of just doing a plain shadow, I actually added some texture for the tree. You can do that as well. You can just do big chunks of dark so that when you go to paint it, you just have that really nice dark texture back behind. And we can fine tune these trees and make them a little bit thicker and add more color, but it's really good just to have an abstract base. And all I did is I just took my paintbrush, I took the dark, and I just went in there with that smaller flat brush and just added texture and lines. So you can do stippling or you can do lines, whatever feels best to you. And you just follow along that tree trunk, and you make some branches longer than others. You know, just taper your brush and taper your strokes as you go down. It's very important when you do a pine tree to not have everything be perfectly symmetrical. I see a lot of students who take their brush and they do these straight lines across, and that's when it looks fake, it looks cartoony. If you want it to look real, you've got to make it look real by adding a lot of different layers, a lot of different sizes of branches, and you want to scatter those branches so that they aren't perfectly symmetrical. Before you do the white, another thing I would suggest is take that fine tip brush, and I would dip my brush in that dark gray color, and you can actually go in and decide where all the little baby trees are going. Because at this point we have that background painted in. And so now it's okay to add some of these details. So just go in and do several of these little baby trees. And the same thing applies with the smaller pine trees. You don't want them all lined up the same size and shape. You want some to be longer than others. You can even extend this one and make it taller. And there's another one next to it. Okay, now add your white, and then I'll show you how to detail these trees a little bit more. Now that it's been 24 hours since I worked on this painting, I'm going to come back and add the snow and then also some green in the pine trees. And so I want to add Viridian just to have a really nice green color in the background in the trees. And I'll show you how to mix that in with the blue so that we get a really pretty color. So take the green and come over here. I want you to take just a hint of the burnt sienna and then take a little bit of the Cobalt Teal and mix those three colors together. And then wipe off your palette knife and take a little bit of titanium white, not a lot, and then mix that in. And then take more green and add that in. And can you see how we have just a faint green shade here? You don't want it to be too strong of a green because then it will overpower the colors in the tree. To get another shade of green, let's add some yellow ochre. And I'm just going to put it right here. And we'll take that same Viridian and mix that together. And see, again, it isn't super light, but we have a muted green in here. And then you can add a little bit of the Cerulean blue, just to make sure it isn't too yellow. And see how pretty those two colors are? So now we can take them and just add some more depth to the pine trees. Okay, so now to the fun part. We get to add the detail on these trees, and we're going to use some of the colors yesterday and then also the new colors that we mixed. So take your fine tip brush, and I want you to go in and just stipple lightly. Don't do it heavily. Just go in where the shadows are and stipple some texture in there. And you will have to go back and forth between each branch. And see how you can see that subtle green? That's what we want. You'll take titanium white. You don't want to get carried away, but do the same thing with your wet paint. So the green is underneath and it's wet. And what will happen as you stipple, and I'm just doing little dots, it will start to blend into that green a little bit. Because if it's straight white, it's not going to look very natural. You want to be sure to mute it. And then also you can use that gray that we mixed to go along with the green, the greenish gray, and just use that to also go in and stipple. And just go back and forth between those colors. And then you can also add some of the blues that we mixed yesterday. So that turquoise colored blue is really, really pretty. Even after I've done the white, I want to take that blue and go back over. And then you can take a light gray, and in this case I've got kind of an icy gray. And you'll just use that to paint the tips of the branches. You want those to fade into the background. And this is what will help your painting to look more realistic. So all I'm doing here is just stippling with my brush. Just teeny tiny little dots everywhere. And if you want, you can even do little paint strokes. If you don't want to do just dots, you can actually, like right on the ends, you can stroke outward. You can do a combination of both, and that's what I'd actually recommend. And see how natural that looks? So that's the look we're going for. I'm going to put it on time lapse as I finish that tree, and then I'll show you how to do, I want to do a snowy bush back in here, and then probably another tiny pine tree here. So just use those same colors that I showed you and begin to fill in that area. Add some dimension in here. We're going to do a bush that's covered in snow, and so we need a good undertone color. We're just going to go up in here and add blue, this bluish gray. And you're just basically going to make the rounded shape of the bush. And then on the top, add titanium white. And you have to remember that the bush is frozen, and so you want it to kind of stick up. And so as you're painting, just make sure you frost the top of that bush to give it that frozen effect. And then underneath, you want to have a darker shadow, just so it looks natural. And it would actually help to have some of the pinks that we mixed yesterday, so mix the purples and the pinks and just a few colors within the bush towards the base. And then the very top, just make sure it stays really bright and white. You can even have some lines and some dots kind of up here. That will help to make it look more natural. And then down below, you can extend a shadow. And then I really think that we should do a frosted tree right in here. And this will be fun because you just take your brush, clean it off, and then dip it in titanium white. And I'm actually going to use my really thin brush. It's this one here. You want to get some liquid on there so it glides smoothly. And do a straight line up. And then you want to fork out like pine trees do at the top. And this pine tree is one of those cute pointy trees where all the branches and the pine needles go upward, and so you'll just do several branches coming up like this, and then we'll add some foliage as we go down further. Okay, and then at this point you take your other fine tip brush and dip it in the white, and then just go in and you can thicken the foliage in the tree down below. If you want, you can actually have it come out in front of this other tree right here. See how that adds some dimension back in here, and it also gives it some depth. Okay, and then one other fun thing that would look really good on the painting is to take more white and add it to the branches on this tree that's back in the distance. See how pretty that is? And it just makes this area look more fascinating. I don't know, it just makes it look so much better. More wintry. And notice how I'm not doing it over in here, just kind of on the edges, because then it allows the rest of the tree to be ghost-like and more back in the distance. You can even do a little bit on this side, not a lot. And then I would also suggest doing some bushes and some shrubbery just back in here that are frosted in snow. And nobody has to know exactly what it is, but just so that you have more depth. Because you don't want to just see a brown line and then everything disappear. You need to give the illusion that there's more back there. And another way you can do that is you can take some other colors, and you might need a bigger brush for that, but just take some other colors and go in and blend. And it just gives this abstract impression that there's something out there. And really it can be an abstract tree if you do long branches like this. But then make sure you take white and you want to soften that up a little. And then take the white and frost the edges of that. So I'm going to finish this area in here. And just watch, I might add a few finishing touches over here as well. So just watch what I do and follow along. And now you have a beautiful masterpiece to hang throughout the winter season. Thanks for tuning in today. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.